Sit back and listen, dear friends, to a tale that stretches through the corridors of time and the darkest corners of human despair. A tale of love, sacrifice, and the unyielding power of family. Allow me to recount for you the story of Thomas and Mary Ann, two souls whose lives were forever intertwined by destiny, and whose devotion to their only son, Andrew, drove them to brave the most treacherous night imaginable. This is not a tale told in chapters or parts, but a single, continuous thread of suspense, mystery, and emotional drama. A story so vast and intricate that every word carries the weight of hope and the echo of heartbreak. It began, as many such stories do, on a night when the wind howled like a forlorn spirit and the moon hid its face behind a veil of dark clouds. Thomas, a sturdy, principled man with eyes that had witnessed both joy and sorrow, had spent his entire life working with his hands, building, fixing, nurturing. Mary Ann, gentle yet resilient, had always possessed a warmth that could melt the coldest winter. Together, they had carved out a modest life in the sleepy town of Briarwood, a town where neighbors greeted each other with knowing smiles, and every street corner seemed to hold a memory of days gone by. Their love, forged in simpler times, had blossomed into a steadfast commitment that even the ravages of time could not dim. Andrew, their only son, was the light of their lives, a bright, curious soul who carried within him the promise of tomorrow. From a young age, Andrew had been captivated by the world around him, the bustling market square, the gentle hum of everyday routines, the spark of adventure that lay hidden in every unexpected encounter. As he grew older, his inquisitive nature led him to explore beyond the familiar borders of Briarwood, seeking thrills and new experiences in a world that seemed to beckon with the promise of untold wonders. Yet, as fate would have it, those very adventures began to lead him into dangerous territory, a realm where the seductive allure of the forbidden masked the grim reality of exploitation and malice. One fateful autumn evening, when the sky was painted with the hues of fading sunset and a chill crept into the bones of the land, Andrew vanished. Thomas returned home from his long day at the workshop to find the front door ajar, the silence inside as heavy as a tomb. Mary Ann, her eyes wide with dread, clutched a faded photograph of Andrew as a child, a reminder of a time when his laughter had filled their modest home with hope. In that instant, every heartbeat of their shared past surged into the present with a painful urgency. Their son, who had once run through the halls with unbridled joy, was now missing, snatched away by the dark forces that prey on the vulnerabilities of youth. The investigation that followed was a harrowing descent into a world few dared to acknowledge. Thomas and Mary Ann scoured every street, every shadowed alley, questioning anyone who might have seen a glimpse of their precious Andrew. They learned, through hushed conversations with tearful informants and wary whispers from local vendors, that Andrew had been seen with a group of individuals known for their involvement in unsavory activities. People who trafficked in secrets and dealt in the currency of fear. These were not common delinquents, but a well-organized network of criminals whose reach extended deep into the underbelly of society. Andrew, with his bright eyes and rebellious spirit, had inadvertently fallen into their orbit, lured by the promise of excitement and the illusion of belonging. Determined to reclaim their son from the clutches of darkness, Thomas and Mary Ann resolved to leave no stone unturned. Under the cover of night, armed with nothing more than a flickering lantern and a heart full of paternal and maternal love, they embarked on a quest that would test their limits, shatter their illusions, and forge within them a strength they had never before imagined. They traced Andrew's steps through the labyrinthine streets of Briarwood and beyond, following clues that led them into forgotten warehouses, abandoned industrial sites, and even the dingy back rooms of once thriving businesses now overrun by the specter of decay. Every lead was a double-edged sword, a mix of hope and despair. At times, they encountered kind souls who, moved by their plight, offered morsels of information that illuminated the dark tapestry of Andrew's disappearance. At other times, They faced outright hostility from those who wished to keep the underworld's secrets buried. Thomas, whose calloused hands had built his family's legacy, now found them trembling with the weight of his responsibility. Mary Ann, whose gentle voice had soothed countless hearts, now spoke with a tremor that belied the fierce determination burning in her eyes. Their journey took them far beyond the familiar borders of Briarwood. In a decaying industrial district on the outskirts of a sprawling city, they discovered an underground den where the air was thick with smoke and the murmur of conspiracies. In this grim setting, they learned of a plan to exploit vulnerable youths for profit, a scheme orchestrated by a clandestine syndicate whose ruthlessness was matched only by their cunning. Andrew, it seemed, had been seen frequenting this den, his youthful curiosity having led him into a trap from which escape was nearly impossible. The revelation struck Thomas and Mary Ann with the force of 1,000 storms. The realization that their son had become a pawn in a game played by heartless predators was almost too much to bear. But love, as it always does, propelled them forward. With each passing day, their resolve hardened. They enlisted the help of trusted friends and former colleagues, men and women who had once shared in the simple joys of Briarwood and who now felt compelled to stand by the side of a family in distress. Together, they formed a small band of vigilantes, each member driven by the collective need to protect the innocent and bring justice to those who dare to prey on the vulnerable. They studied every detail, pieced together every scrap of evidence, and slowly built a case that pointed unmistakably toward the leaders of the syndicate. As the investigation deepened, so did the danger. Mysterious figures began to shadow their every move, and ominous warnings arrived in the form of anonymous phone calls and cryptic letters. Yet, Thomas and Mary Ann pressed on, buoyed by memories of Andrew's laughter echoing in their hearts and the unbreakable bond that had been forged through years of shared triumphs and trials. In the dead of night, when the world was shrouded in silence, and the only sound was the distant hum of a restless city, they would huddle together, whispering words of encouragement and drawing strength from the love that had sustained them through every hardship. One particularly harrowing evening, as a bitter wind howled outside and the rain lashed against the windows of their temporary hideout, a breakthrough came in the form of an informant, a young man whose eyes were filled with regret and whose hands trembled as he recounted his own narrow escape from the syndicate's clutches. Through halting words and desperate pleas, he revealed that Andrew was being held in a dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place that reeked of danger and despair. The informant's voice, raw and trembling, painted a picture of a labyrinth of rooms where frightened faces hid in the shadows, and where the very air seemed to vibrate with the pulse of fear. It was a revelation that ignited both hope and terror in the hearts of Thomas and Mary Ann. Without hesitation, they gathered their small band of allies and set off under the cloak of darkness. The journey to the warehouse was a treacherous one, fraught with uncertainty at every turn. The rain had subsided to a steady drizzle, and the moon, a silver crescent in the inky sky, offered scant light to guide their way. Every step toward that ominous building felt like a march into the unknown, a test of faith, courage, and the unyielding power of parental love. When they finally arrived at the warehouse, its crumbling facade loomed before them like a monument to lost hope. The building, long abandoned by those with a conscience, seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Thomas and Mary Ann, hearts pounding in unison, crept toward a side entrance, mindful of every sound and every shifting shadow. They could hear muffled voices from within, the murmurs of a conversation laced with cruelty and disdain. And then, as if in answer to their silent prayers, they found him. Andrew, his eyes wide with terror, his face streaked with tears and grime. For a moment, time itself seemed to slow as father and mother rushed toward their son, enveloping him in an embrace that was as much a promise as it was a rescue. But their reunion was tragically short-lived. The moment they clutched Andrew close, the sound of approaching footsteps shattered the fragile silence. The syndicate, alerted by the commotion, converge on their position with a ferocity born of desperation and cruelty. In that instant, the warehouse erupted into chaos. Shouts, the clatter of heavy boots, and the sharp crack of breaking glass filled the air as Thomas, Mary Ann, and their newfound allies fought with every ounce of strength they possessed. It was a desperate struggle, a battle in which the stakes were nothing less than the life of a child and the soul of a family. In the midst of a melee, Thomas found himself face to face with one of the syndicate's enforcers, a hulking man with a scarred face and eyes that glinted with malice. Their confrontation was swift and brutal. With the fury of a father defending his child, Thomas engaged in a fierce struggle, his mind a whirlwind of memories. The laughter of a boy who once played at his feet, the tender moments shared over bedtime stories, the dreams that had been woven into the very fabric of their lives. Each blow, each counter, was fueled by the raw power of a love that refused to yield to the darkness. Mary Ann, ever the embodiment of quiet strength, rallied beside her husband. With unwavering determination, she helped fend off attackers, her voice rising in a clarion call for justice and protection. Andrew, though shaken to his very core, clung to his parents, finding in their arms the courage to believe that even the deepest night could be pierced by the light of love. The battle raged on, a tempest of violence and valor, until finally, with the combined might of their allies and the indomitable spirit of a family united, the syndicate's forces began to falter. The attackers, realizing that their prey had become too fiercely guarded, retreated into the labyrinth of shadows from which they had emerged. In the aftermath of the harrowing confrontation, as the echoes of violence slowly faded into an eerie silence, Thomas and Marion gathered their son in a protective embrace. The warehouse, now littered with the remnants of the struggle, stood as a somber reminder of the night's terror. A place where darkness had sought to claim the light of a family's love, but had been repelled by the unyielding courage of its protectors. In that quiet moment of reprieve, as they huddled together beneath a tattered blanket and whispered words of solace, the trio vowed that they would never again allow the forces of malevolence to tear them apart. Their journey home was one of quiet reflection, a pilgrimage marked by scars, both visible and hidden. Every mile they traveled was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to the power of love that could transform even the most desperate of circumstances into a beacon of hope. News of their daring rescue spread like wildfire through Briarwood, igniting a collective sense of awe and inspiring others to stand up against the creeping darkness that threatened their community. Thomas and Mary Ann, once ordinary citizens leading simple lives, had become symbols of defiance, a reminder that the bonds of family, once forged in love, could overcome even the most insidious of evils. In the days and weeks that followed, the wounds of that fateful night began to heal, though they left an indelible mark on all who had borne witness. Andrew, forever changed by the ordeal, emerged with a newfound determination to live a life guided by the principles of honor and compassion. He became a quiet force for good, a living tribute to the sacrifices his parents had made, and a beacon for others who had once wandered in the darkness. Thomas and Mary Ann, their eyes now reflecting both sorrow and an unwavering hope, dedicated themselves to ensuring that the legacy of that night would never be forgotten, a legacy of bravery, unity, and the unbreakable strength of a family's love. So, dear listener, as you absorb this tale of terror, redemption, and the relentless power of love, remember that in the heart of every human soul there lies a spark of light capable of dispelling even the deepest shadows. The story of Thomas, Mary Ann, and Andrew is a timeless reminder that while the world may be filled with peril and uncertainty, the bonds we forge with those we hold dear can transform our darkest moments into triumphs of the spirit. Their journey, marked by tears and triumph, stands as a testament to the truth that love, steadfast, enduring, and fierce, will always find a way to guide us home, no matter how winding or treacherous the road may be. In the quiet moments of twilight, when the memories of that stormy night resurface like echoes in a canyon, One can almost hear the soft murmur of promises whispered between parents and child. A promise that, no matter what challenges the future may hold, the light of family will forever shine as a beacon in the night. And so, as the days give way to years and the scars of the past slowly fade into the tapestry of memory, the story of their courageous rescue lives on. A narrative that will forever remind us that in the battle between darkness and light, the love of a family is the most formidable force of all. May this story inspire you, dear friend, to cherish every moment, to stand strong in the face of adversity, and to believe that even in our most vulnerable hours, the love we share can light the way to a brighter tomorrow. For it is in these moments, when we risk everything for those we hold dear, that we truly discover the essence of our humanity and the boundless capacity of our hearts.